Just watch how Wemby takes control of this entire possession, dictating exactly the shot he wants the Celtics to settle for. The play begins with Boston running a pick and roll between Derek White and Horford. The Spurs are in drop coverage, but notice how high up Wemby positions himself in that drop. Wemby understands Horford's tendencies. More often than not, Horford prefers to pop out to the three-point line rather than roll to the basket after setting the screen. As White comes off that screen, Wemby starts to backpedal while being in a drop. Fox ends up getting caught up on the screen, and at this moment, if Horford were to roll hard to the rim, Wemby would be stuck in a 2-on-1, trying to cover both the ball handler and the roller. But this is where Wemby's brilliance shines. Instead of retreating further and waiting for Fox to recover, which could leave Horford wide open either for a pick-and-pop three or an easy cut to the basket, Wemby decides to dictate how he wants the offense to go. He stunts at White, a move that forces White to pick up his dribble. And this one action changes everything. It takes away White's ability to create, forces him to give up the ball, and denies a 38.4% three-point shooter the chance to fire off a clean look off the dribble. But Wemby isn't done. The moment White picks up his dribble, Wemby almost instinctively sprints back to Horford, making sure to close the space. And this is where Wemby's defensive intelligence truly shines. Watch closely as I rewind the play. Instead of charging full speed at Horford for a potential block, Wemby shows incredible poise and awareness. He deliberately slows down at the perfect moment, reading the situation perfectly. That subtle change of pace puts him in complete control. If Horford tries a pump fake and attacks the rim, Wemby is ready to slide and contain him. And if Horford pulls up for the shot, just like he does here, Wemby's freakish length allows him to close the space instantly and force up a tough shot. He essentially manipulated the play so that a 36.3% three-point shooter ends up taking the shot, instead of a 38.4% shooter. That subtle shift might not sound like much, but in that split second, it's the best possible outcome he could have created. And think about it, he managed all of that with Fox basically taken out of the defensive action entirely. That's what I mean when I say Wemby dictates the offense, forcing opponents into exactly the shots he wants them to take. Now look at this similar play later in the same game. The Celtics run the same action, but there's one key difference. As Wemby stunts at Pritchard just like he did at White earlier, Pritchard keeps his dribble alive. Wemby, reading that instantly, knows he can't just fly back to Horford yet. Instead, he prioritizes cutting off Pritchard's driving lane first, then uses that incredible length that we talked about to recover and contest Horford's shot. Same play design, but with two different ball handler decisions. Yet Wemby managed to adjust in real time, making sure he made the right read on both plays. That level of understanding and defensive awareness is simply remarkable for a player in just his second season in the league. Now, when you combine that with Wemby's extraordinary physical tools, his length, agility, and timing, you get a rare blend that makes him a truly generational defender. And that's exactly what sets Wemby apart. It's one of the many reasons he ranks in the top 5% of the entire NBA when defending pick and rolls, allowing just 0.52 points per possession, an elite mark by any standard. To put that into perspective, Wemby is giving up fewer points per possession on pick and rolls than Anthony Davis, Rudy Gobert, Evan Mobley, and Draymond Green, players who have either won Defensive Player of the Year or earned multiple all-defensive first-team honors. But that's just one way Wemby leverages his unique tools and IQ to shut down opposing offenses. Another way is from his impact as a help defender, especially as a rim protector. The Spurs' defensive game plan, when Wemby isn't directly involved in the on-ball action, gives him the freedom to roam, to provide help, and at times even to overhelp. And they trust him to do it because he has the rare ability for someone his size to recover with his length and quickness if the ball swings back to his man. Just look at this play. The Magic run a pick and roll with KCP and Paolo. Wemby keeps his eyes locked on both his man and the action. Chris Paul gets caught on the screen, leaving Paolo free to roll. The instant Paolo catches the pass from KCP, Wemby instinctively slides over, cutting off the driving lane. But here's the impressive part. Watch how effortlessly Wemby goes from cutting off Paolo's path to snapping back and disrupting the alley-oop to Goga. Let's rewind that and take another look at how this unfolds. Watch how Wemby sprints toward Paolo, then stops on a dime, just as Paolo floats the lob toward Goga. And somehow, while backpedaling, Wemby recovers in time to swat away the alley-oop. Most players in this spot honestly would not even come anywhere close to making that recovery, let alone rejecting the pass. But Wemby does it, and what's wild is the difference in effort. Watch how high Goga has to climb just to catch that lob, and then look at Wemby. He barely leaves the ground, yet still manages to block it. Plays like this show why denying alley-oops has become routine for Wemby this season. His sheer length alone changes everything. And it's a perfect example of why the Spurs give him the freedom to overhelp, knowing that with his rare physical tools, he can cover ground and recover to his man whenever he needs to. And that brings us right into what makes his rim protection truly elite. Among all players who defended at least 100 shots at the rim this season, Wemby ranks top 5 in the entire league for defensive field goal percentage, holding opponents to just 50% shooting at the rim. The only players who've been stingier in that department are Chet Holmgren, Isaiah Stewart, Daniel Gafford, and Donovan Clingan. But that's just the beginning of Wemby's defensive dominance. He led the entire league in total blocks with a jaw-dropping 176, despite playing only 46 games. Let that sink in. Brook Lopez came in second with 148 blocks, but needed over 1,000 more minutes on the court, or in other words, 34 more games just to get there. That's how otherworldly Wemby's shot-blocking season truly was. In fact, his 176 blocks accounted for nearly 40% of all Spurs blocks this season, powering San Antonio to finish 4th in total team blocks. Think about that. A single player responsible for almost 40% of his team's blocks, while playing just half the season. Calling Wemby a generational defender isn't just fair, it's almost an understatement. And that's without even mentioning his post defense, which might quietly be the most underrated part of his game, overshadowed by the highlight reel blocks and rim protection that have everyone talking. This season, Wemby allowed just 0.81 points per possession on post-ups, putting him in the top 20% of the league in post defense. And just like we saw in the other areas of his game, his incredible length plays a massive role in that success. Even opposing centers struggle to get clean looks over his outstretched arms, with many of their attempts ending up swatted away. Now imagine if Wemby were to add more size over the offseason. Big men who already have trouble scoring over him will also have to deal with the challenge of trying to back down a stronger, more physical Wemby in the post. And the scary part is that he's doing all this in just his second year. With the Spurs already boasting elite young defenders like Castle and Sochan alongside him, this trio could very well develop into a defensive nightmare for NBA offenses for years to come. Next season is shaping up to be fascinating, not just to see how much Wemby and the Spurs have grown, but whether he can help lead this team to his first playoff appearance. Until then, as always, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate your support, and I can't wait to break down more film with you next time.
Playing for the Spanish national team. Jackson Jr. has Wemby in space, put his shoulder in his chest, and got sent back.